The O2 teams are done, and I got it just right. Gam beat Mad 2-1, and that was my call. Honestly, it's kind of funny how it happened. Not gonna lie. I just had a feeling that Mad, their inconsistency in like how they approach the game and how they're playing these games and how their lane swaps weren't even that good, even though they're in a lane swap region. That Gam would find the edge somehow. And yeah, that was true. And for TL, I said they would 2-0 Pain. It was a lot more painful than I thought for them to get the 2-0, but they got the 2-0. So overall, awesome for the last day of round 3. 100%. Awesome. So let's go straight into the Mad and Gam series. So each game Yon was let through. No, I won't lie. Like, naturally, it's probably not the best idea. However, it's Frescoey. This guy has looked terrible so far at Worlds. Not gonna lie, like, I was never big on him being promoted to LEC in the first place. It's not like he's a crazy good mid or anything like that. Nothing's really spectacular going to come out of him over time either. He's just kind of there as a player. So they did surprisingly well in LEC with him, which, I mean, I don't know whether that's for me to say that it worked or not, but clearly, as you can tell, he can't create his own leads necessarily. He needs his teammates, and in that game 1, Alvaro Nautilus took over the game. I mean, that guy was like burning people's sums like every 2 minutes. Like, he was on point, and yeah, like, he really helped steer the game. And I gotta admit, like, Gam's overall draft, like, they did a Kali Wukong and a 1-2. They chose Yone. And so they got the answer Maokai into Wukong, which sucks. And then they played, what was the other? Their other pick was, forgetting. It was a pretty good pick though. Yeah, I'm like kind of blanking on their top pick. But it was not good. Like, generally it was just not, it was never going to be a fun game, a fun series for what they were dealing with. And I think it was Nar, maybe. I don't remember. But regardless, yeah, I think it was Nar. It like, the way they drafted was not ideal in the first game, so it was already going to be difficult. And like I said, Alvaro was really on point. Helped get them leads. They lane swap. They did this really stupid thing where not, for some odd reason, is in a 1v4 dive. Like, he has to like defend a dive, and then they TP while he's being dove, and they used both TPs. They used 2 TPs, their top laners and their Ziggs, to go into, like, to try to save it. And while it kind of worked, using both TPs in a lane swap like that, that should never happen. Should never happen. So already they're just like off to a terrible start. I'm like, okay, this is really bad. But like I said, thankfully, thanks to some plays, Yon got like a little bit stronger. Yeah, he didn't really make any crazy plays, but together as a team, they played pretty well. And it looked a little dire for Gam, because like after the first game, I'm like, not a good meta read and not a good like game approach. Like there was, oh man, Easy Hoon was dying in really stupid ways. The support was dying in really stupid ways. Emo was playing pretty bad. I don't know. Generally, it just, I had no faith. I thought I was gonna be really wrong from the first game. However, come second game, Emo gets Yon, and again, looked pretty bad. Not gonna lie. Like, he was missing a ton of R's as Yon. Like, he just didn't really have a lot of presence. So I thought to myself, this is over. Like, like, I guess he can't even win on this. Levi, my goat, has Wukong again. Oh my god, he's so good on this champion. I'm not like the biggest fan of taking Wukong. I'm really not. But the way he played it, especially that bot lane play, where he identified he needed to get level 6, and he even had his support help a little bit. He hits level 6 and it's just enough damage to kill. And he might have actually been able to live after that if he didn't like commit into Rakan. He just kept running. And that was a sick play. Really was. But even then, the way Gam plays is very flawed in that it's like Fnatic. Like, the way Fnatic plays is they'll make a play, it's a bad time because like it's not necessarily related to an objective. And then because it's not related to objective, you lose ultis. Ultis are eliminated. And then your opponent gets the objective. Right? That happens. So that's kind of how they played. But the thing is, which is weird, is that the way Mad dealt with this, you know how Test dealt with this? Test literally farmed 2-to-1 lanes. They let that one lane die, and then they took over 2 lanes, and they just kept going up gold despite this. And they were getting objectives. That's Test. The way Mad plays is not this. Mad answers the play. So while Gam are committing like the 3, the 4 to the side or whatever the case is, first, or like, you know, it could even be mid lane because they were doing it in mid lane too. Mad was answering this with their own guys, and they were using their TPs. They were just using ultis to try to like save someone. Like I know there was a time where Alvaro got caught, and then I see Sejuani using R to try to save him, but then Alvaro dies anyways, and now we're down Sejuani R, and it's just like, you're never going to make any progress. You won't. You're going nowhere. So that's literally why Mad lost in the end of the day. Like they could not play a disciplined, complete game, which will ruin Gam, and they lost. And congrats to Gam. Also, I have to give shouts to, was it Kiaya? Is that his name? He's been well known as like just a really good top laner because like he's always like towards the top and like solo queue and things like that. And yeah, I mean that guy was great as expected. So this was correct. 2 out of 2 points. Cool. Awesome. TL versus Pain. This one, I actually like the drafts by Pain more. Like both drafts, they seem more complete, more playable. Again, like, especially if like they had better players, I could easily see this being more problematic for TL. So I feel like TL has to kind of still make adjustments and tune this up, because if they can't, then when they play against better teams and so forth, you know, luckily enough, like with their draw, like they're not going to necessarily play someone where that's still going to be the greatest issue. But down the line, you play against like the actual like contenders or semi-contenders, you can't do that, right? Now, it wasn't even like Titan, like who is definitely Pain's best player, was the one who's actually causing all the damage and issues. It was like TL just kept putting themselves in odd spots and fights and misplaying that just made things harder than they needed to be. And I will say that, what's his name? I'm trying to remember his name. Let me pull it up real quick. Weiser. This guy actually played pretty well. Like, for this series specifically, this guy played pretty damn good. And that was a huge benefit to Pain, the fact that he could help match Impact and even beating Impact at times. So having that guy there, yeah, that was awesome. Like, top lane being dealt with, and that's one of TL's like big strengths. Really nice. APA still had some like random moments of just being caught and just like misplaying that necessarily didn't help, but he did do better overall. They played around mid jungle a little bit better. That was good. And to be honest, like Pain's mid is really bad. So it's like one of the rare times that like, and again, this is gonna be the case here. So like TL is like hitting the great teams for them to like, you know, have matchups that are not gonna be that horrible for them. Like just like player wise, right? Like how players stack up to each other. And you know, there was just situations even where like TL they gave Ocean Soul to Pain to get Baron, which is terrible. And the only reason why they won is because Pain kind of ran it down in that situation. And yeah, overall, I'm not that excited about TL at this point. I'm pretty worried. Yeon had a really killer game 1, I will say that. And overall, it seems like the LCS 80s, Masu and Yeon, are definitely doing work, which is great to see. So I'm not going to go too much into this series just because in the end of the day, it's like there's not too much to pull from outside. Like I said, like TL's just like playing bad. They're still like doing the same stuff they're actually kind of doing in LCS, where like people are just overcommitting. Like Umpty like by the Herald. No, this wasn't by the Herald. It was the second game, second Grubs, and he's just like running into them, and it's like, okay, they already got 5, by the way. So if they get the 6th one, like there's no point. Like it doesn't really change much. But he's like walking in front of them, seeing if they're actually gonna do something, and then they just kill him. And like I was just trying to think what was the plan the entire time. So like we just have those moments where people just die, people just make mistakes, and it's rough. It's really rough. So at this point right now, I am. So this was a 6 out of 8 day. This was I think this was a 7 out of 8 day. The one I got wrong was, I got this wrong. And this one, this was if it was a lane swap. Oh, so this was 6 out of 8 too. Because I called if it's a lane swap, TL wins. If it's not a lane swap, then LNG wins. But it was a lane swap and TL lost. So 6 out of 8, 6 out of 8. And then, like I said, I double up points. So this was correct. So this was 2. This was 0. This was 1, 0, 1, 1. This is 2, and then this is 2. So this puts me at what? 3, 4, 5, 7, 9. And this is 9 out of what? 4, 8, 12. So 9 out of 12 points. Okay, so far I've missed a total of what? 7 points on the table? 16, 28. So I'm at a 22. No, 21. So this is where I'm at right now. 3/4, 75% prediction rate. That's what I'm at right now. And this is including series. Not bad. Could be worse. Not bad. Now, for the predictions going into the round 4, and this is going to be way harder than previous. Actually, it might be easier in some ways for how I'm going to do this. Let's start simple. HLE versus FlyQuest. It's an HLE win, and it's a 2-0 for HLE. I think this is just too far ahead for FlyQuest. I think Doran has a lot of picks that kind of play at his will, and he's also the type of guy who doesn't actively just kill himself for like random situations. And for FlyQuest, you know, it's very obvious that you have to play around like the Renekton pick, right? And they could easily just ban Renekton. They have to ban Rumble. And at that point, I just, like, the way Beppo's been playing, I just don't believe it. Masu's been good, but I just, like, is Masu and Busio, who Busio hasn't even been that stellar, are they really gonna beat, like, Viper Delight? I don't think so. And I feel like just stylistically, it's just like HLE is just gonna be a way better version of FlyQuest. So it's just like, it's just a better version, you know? Like, that's how I feel. Like, it's just a better version, and I just can't see them picking up a game even. It just seems like it's going to be hard. Of course, now here's the thing. I think the FlyQuest could maybe do some damage if HLE has not figured out their meta situation yet. Because HLE is still, like, a little behind. But if HLE actually, like, okay, sits down, it's like, what is good? What is working? What is Gen.G doing? What are these teams doing? What is LNG doing? Seeing as how LNG is, like, definitely like the forefront to me of like leaders to look at. And if they adapt, and especially if they adapt well in the series, because I think they've struggled adapting in the series, they'll be fine. BLG versus PSG, you know, BLG has not been the best. I think I've said BLG will win like every game. Yeah, every game I've assumed BLG would win. And for PSG, like, they are slowly getting there and figuring stuff out. But I really feel like BLG is just going to lock in and just finish this out. Like, you could say 2-1, and that might be a little bit of a safer route in some ways. But I'm going to go with the 2-0 for them because, to me, they should figure their stuff out by that. Like, if BLG somehow does not figure things out in terms of like what they should be drafting, and like Elk getting like Elk and On actually like being the guys that are like good, who are good, then this is it. Like if they 2-1 them and they move on to the next round, then I'll just lose my hope on them then. But for now, like they should like perform. Like they have like the break, adjust, and like use mid, please. Like use mid as best you can, and play it out from there, right? Weibo versus Fnatic. Yo, I'm gonna be honest. This could get really wild. Like, there's definitely a chance that Fnatic could pick up a game. But like, after seeing them play and how they played, I just there's no way you could ever trust them. And maybe people would give them a game, but for me, I'm not trusting them. I am still in the very same thought process as I was before, in that they're imposters. Fnatic. I just can't imagine them like giving, like, they might give Weibo like trouble. They literally could give Weibo trouble, but I feel like the way Weibo has been playing, like their players will be good enough when they get to these fight situations, and it's the same reason why I said that Weibo would beat TL, in that they will do a better job when it comes to it, and Fnatic won't. So it's a 2-0. TL versus Gam. TL versus Gam. You know, I better not regret this. It's a 2-1. Okay, I was gonna say 2-1 versus Gam, but I do feel like Gam is flawed enough. The only thing is TL's also playing kind of bad, so it requires, like, it might help that TL has this break, because they also play on the 12th. So they actually have 5 days to adjust, and Gam's not going to adjust their playstyle at all. So for that, I'm doing a 2-0 for TL. Like, I feel like it just, I could say break adjust, but I feel like this is a case where they're going to tighten things up. They're going to tighten things up, and they will actually come up with a good plan versus Gam. That's how I feel. I feel like they'll have an actual good plan versus Gam and take them very serious, because there's also going to be another break going into round 5 anyways, right? So they could put all their time into prepping for this one team. They have several days to do it. The playstyle is very obvious for Gam. The bans are pretty obvious too on what you should do versus Gam. Yes, there can be some surprise picks that can happen, like the Shyvana, though we saw that ban, like the Karthus, things like this. But do your work on that and nail down the rest of the picks, because like the thing is, I was so worried for the Gam series against Mad, because their bot lane can play so bad. The fact that like basically mid and bot are just like not the most dependable, and for Mad, like the easy win con is just to use your bot lane who's been playing together, Supa and Alvaro. But I feel like Yan and CoreJJ will definitely be more in tune to what's happening. Impact will do better than Mern by far. Like, just has to clean his shit, and same with APA. That's about it. But I do feel like this should be a 2-0. Like, yeah, it might be messy, it might be bloody again, it might be like the Pain game. It might be a bit of a messy game, but I feel like the way TL operates, how they think, they should prevail. So far, 2 zeros all on the left side. And the explanations, I'll admit, are not like as thorough as they can be at times. Like, for instance, for Weibo versus Fnatic, like, again, it's mostly just on the feeling that from watching Fnatic, they have just such a, like, Fnatic and Gamma are similar in that they have really poorly timed fights, and this kind of just leaves you open to like enemy getting advantages. Xiao Hu shows that he can definitely farm up a storm, become strong. And it's not like Breathe is like the best top laner, but like I don't think Fnatic is going to abuse that much. And their bot lane is very legit. At least their AD is very, very legit. So that's like a worrisome thing to have to deal with. Like if he actually like turns on and they put him on the right picks, not Jhin, please, for the love of God. Yeah, that's definitely worrisome. Now the hardest games to predict are definitely DK, TeS, and G2 T1. So DK TeS, you know, the biggest issue with TeS is that they can kind of let the game get away from them and start making like random mistakes. And if they can't like grasp anything well enough, yeah, they just fall apart. DK, meanwhile, their top laner and their support are terrible. Like they're playing really bad. Like they're playing so bad that like I just can't ever trust them. And for TeS, you know, it's not like I think 369 is really that stellar. I'll be honest, I'm kind of a 369 hater. Like people keep telling me that this guy is like just as good as like these other like top laners like Zeus and whatever, but the reality is he's just not. Like regardless of how good like he may do in LPL or whatever the case is, whenever I see him in international play, and yes, I even when I watched him in LPL, like I was still like, I just don't see it. Like I just don't get the same feeling as like when you watch like players like Bin play with 369. Like it just doesn't happen. Like he will literally have a lead and then just not be able to like overwhelm his opponents with it, and that's a problem. But at the same time, Kingen is not really that great. He's definitely not doing that great. So 369 has an edge in top lane. Lucid has been okay. Tien should actually have a little bit of an edge as well. He should. Tien should have a little bit of an edge. I think he's been playing a bit better. They've definitely shown more competitive games and faced definitely tougher opponents than DK, outside of DK facing LNG. So the fact that TeS has been literally tested more should be an advantage to them. For support, you know, we have JackeyLove and Maiko versus fucking Moham. Like, and yes, Aiming is doing well. I will say that Aiming's definitely doing well, but like, dude, TeS is one of those teams with their bot lane that they can crush you, like absolutely crush you if they have the right bot matchup. And this is one of those games where, like, one of those series, like, where this definitely could be a thing. They also have a mid laner who also so happens to be able to handle himself very well. Like, like, it's Knight. Like, he's gonna handle them. He's gonna be able to do it. Like, oh, that was a mistake. Or was it? No, it wasn't. Haha. 1 second. Like, when we look at TeS. Oh, I said Knight. Sorry. I knew I was like thinking to myself, wait, Knight, that's not right. Yeah, that's like, because this is Scout and this is Knight. Yeah, sorry. Lovely. But it's Cream, right? Damn, dude. I knew it. I knew I said it wrong. I was like, this is Knight. And I'm like, it's not Knight, it's Cream. It's Cream. And so Cream, like, I think that's like the only advantage like DK will have over them is it's Showmaker. And Showmaker has done well enough throughout to do what he can. And like their team has always just been based on mid jungle 80. Okay? At least for like recency bias. But they're not gonna have a bot matchup or a bot, like a really great bot advantage over TeS. So that's gone. Mid, they should have an advantage, but Cream has been fine. So, and he could definitely play these strong meta picks. So that's like helps. So there's like a slight edge to DK there, right? But I feel like the way Tien and Cream will play together, especially with Maiko, will be better than DK. And at that point, DK just doesn't have anything to stand on. So, at the end of the day, to me, I don't know if this is going to be a 2-0. Like, in theory, it should be a 2-0, right? In theory, it should be a 2-0. Wow, that's way too much. There we go. In theory, I feel like it should be a 2-0, but I'm going to do a 2-1 for TeS. Maybe it gets a little bit closer because TeS sometimes makes mistakes and those things can happen. But I think it'll be a 2-1, and it stems from the fact that bot diff, and just competitive mid jungle, and just overall, just like contributors. I'm just gonna call them contributors. Because for me, that's what they have. They have good contributors. So 2-1 Tess. G2 T1. This has happened many times. G2 has come close to beating them several times, but T1 always prevails. The thing is, for T1, I feel like G2's reads on the meta has been pretty good. I think it's definitely been better than T1. I think that extra time in between this series, because there's a 5-day difference, is going to allow T1 to properly adjust, figure out their meta, and then also get their like head screwed on tight. I think G2 will do a really good job with their prep. So it should, again, be a pretty close series. It should be a competitive series. And in the end of the day, it's like you have to decide what do you think is best. Because for me, I guess T1 here. T1 and T1. I like BLG. I guess T1 or sorry, I chose T1 when it was the obvious win, and then and I thought Tess would like this would be an obvious win for them, but they didn't win that. And then even this one, like when I was like, nah, they won't beat it, then they beat them. And to me, it's like G2's creative enough, they find angles enough that do help. It's just how do their players perform when it really counts? And I don't know. Part of me thinks that this will still go in T1's favor. I've definitely voted for G2 at times. Like here, I went with them. I went with HLE in this one. I went with G2 here naturally. Actually, I might have went with... No, I went with G2 in this one. Yeah, I voted for G2 each time as well. Oh. But I feel like it probably will go into T1's favor in a 1-2. He's like the only series I think that will go to 3 games. And I think it's just the fact that I feel like Zeus, if he does start finding out and start looking to do things like the Gwen, that's going to be a big problem for G2. Like their bot lane still has plenty of time to kind of like flex around and figure out their picks in more of a unique way than what they're doing currently. And like HLE, like they can definitely look at see what these other teams are doing and adapt that into their play. Like Faker can definitely land into the Galio if teams are going to be doing things like Ahri and like lower damage mids. Like you can do that. And yeah, I mean, they have some pretty solid flexes. It's not like T1 is necessarily doing... It's not like T1 is like I didn't even think like their win against BLG was that crazy, that great. But there's just something about them that when it really comes down to it, they make it happen. And it's just like really annoying because it's like it doesn't make sense in the end of the day. Like it's not something like you as an analyst would say, well, yeah, it's just like all these factors for T1 is why they should win. But actually, it's more so that it's just this one hidden factor that just, when it comes down to it, they'll finish the series. They'll finish the game off. I'll just say finds the moments. Finds the moment. And G2 can find moments, but the difference is, plus they execute it. Because this is true. I feel like for T1, they will actually execute on that moment and win. Whereas G2, they will try to execute, but they fail. And that edge goes to T1. Because T1 could definitely be a very creative team, like the way G2 can be. That's why the series is such a fun one to watch between the two. So yeah, I think going into this next round, I think Tess will win 2-1. Like I said, I think they just have a better overall shape of a roster, and they've definitely been tested more, so they should be more ready and more adapted towards what like these high-level games for the stage matches. I think HLE will just fly apart because they're just literally like a good controlled team, and FlyQuest is a controlled team but just weaker, like across the board for the most part. You know, T1 versus G2, this will definitely be my least confident series to call. Like, there's definitely a possibility that G2 will win, and I'm wrong, but at least to me, I feel like that one extra factor of T1 being able to actually find the right moment, like G2, but actually execute and finish it for the win. There's just not a lot of teams that have that, and T1 has it. BLG versus PSG, yes, PSG has been competitive versus a lot of teams. Yes, BLG is on the down low, but like, I don't know, with the amount of prep time they have, I just really can't imagine this team loses to PSG in the end of the day. I just can't really see it. Like, Knight has been stellar across most of this tournament at this point, so you tell me that guy's gonna lose in this moment? No way. Weibo versus Fnatic. Again, it's just Fnatic are imposters. Even if Weibo's not necessarily having the best time with their support and top laner, kind of like DK, I think Weibo at least brings things together better. Even with like those players will still contribute meaningfully in those later stages, more so compared to DK. And that fighting prowess, like Fnatic are gonna fight them head on. And I think Weibo will just win, just like how Weibo won against TL. And for TL versus Gam, I think one thing TL can do well, same with G2, is like when they have time to prep, they can come up with a really good strategy. So I feel like TL will have a legit strategy going against Gam, who are no way to like change their style at all. TL can change their style a bit. They have the players who are capable, but Gam doesn't. So yeah, 2-0 TL. And yeah, those are my predictions, guys. Make sure to, comment on what you think is going to happen, what you thought of the game so far. And yeah, we got a little bit of break. So until next time, see ya.